I'm a pre-Title IX baby, and I didn't have those opportunities growing up.
The passage of Title IX in 1972 is perhaps the most important legislation in sports history. It represents opportunity, advancement, equity.
June 23rd of 1972 is one of the most powerful, remarkable days in the history of our country, especially when it comes to college athletics and equality.
As we celebrate the 50th anniversary of Title IX, it's important for us to recognize the pioneers that came before us and the trail they blaze, the journey we have been on, and the strides we have made over the last 5 decades.
It opened up a whole new world for me and really was the inspiration for me to go to grad school, get a sport management degree, and really devote the rest of my life to doing what I could to make sure that the following generations had the opportunities that I didn't have.
I was a varsity women's ice hockey athlete in the 1980s. This was well before the NCAA began sponsoring a championship in women's hockey. Were we supposed to just be satisfied with the fact that we were allowed to exist as a varsity team when there was no broader national structure around the sport? That fundamentally felt unfair.
As the father of both a son and a daughter, the idea that they would not have the same opportunities to chase their dreams is unimaginable. But this was the reality for so many women prior to Title IX.
We are honored to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Title IX. We recognize and celebrate our trailblazing pioneers, student athletes, coaches, and administrators who have paved the way for the women of today's generation and beyond.
To me, Title IX is all about providing opportunity. I think about growing up. It wasn't until 7th grade that there was a basketball team that I could join. And I'm just so incredibly grateful for Title IX and all of the people that have worked so hard to make progress.
This transformative law made it possible for me to attend the University of Virginia on a basketball scholarship. I wouldn't be the person that I am today without that education and all of the life experiences that flowed from it.
I think Title IX has permeated into the nomenclature of not only athletics, but society as a whole.
I was just 7 years old when Title IX was adopted, and that one act set my life on an amazing journey. Title IX turned this competitive tomboy into a women's sports pioneer at a young age.
What a great and marvelous anniversary to be celebrating. Thinking back to U.S. Senator Birch Bayh from Indiana drafting and pushing through that landmark piece of legislation that has meant so much to intercollegiate athletics, and I would argue all of sport.
It's quite remarkable and somewhat unbelievable today that it took a law passed in 1972 which made no reference to sports to address inherent inequalities within our intercollegiate athletic environment. Title IX has had such a large positive impact, particularly for so many deserving female athletes over the past 5 decades.
Since that time, names historically like Pat Summitt, Sue Gunner, in present day like Dawn Staley, remind us of the important opportunities provided to and led by women in college sports. While our history is strong, we know that both now and in the future our commitment to women's athletics must even exceed the expectations established in the early 70s.
When I think about Title IX, it reminds me of the trailblazers that make today's version of the world possible. People like Beth Berry, who played on the South Alabama men's golf team before there was a women's program, or Ann Dieland, who competed on Georgia State's men's tennis team before there was a women's team.
As we celebrate 50 years of this incredible law, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is, of course, opportunity, but then most importantly, how does that opportunity that women have been provided through this college sport and college education translate? We see women in the boardroom, we see women in collegiate leadership positions, we see women in government, and all those numbers are increasing.
So having more women in leadership roles really is important for college sport.
We are not just women leaders, we are leaders.
The Mountain West Conference is very proud of its efforts towards Title IX and the promotion of women's sports. We've had the first ever women's football player participate back in 2002. We have a former softball standout who's the first minor league manager in Major League Baseball.
I think that it started with Title IX and participation, and it's leading to where we are today. And there's a long way to go still, but seeing more diverse groups leading future student athletes and women participating in sports, people that look like them in roles that they might want to have someday. I think Title IX was the start of that.
I was an undergraduate when the Title IX legislation was passed, and I've seen throughout my career the growth of women's sports. And I also had the opportunity to sit on the women's basketball committee and see how that sport has just grown and has become one of the finest events within the NCAA.
My grandparents taught me you should always leave the campsite better than you found it, and that's our responsibility. If today's the best day ever to be a female student athlete, our job is to make sure that's always true. Going forward, that should always be true. So that's our challenge and that's our responsibility.
We are extremely proud to celebrate the 50th anniversary. This is an extremely important endeavor and one in which we can never forget. We're all committed, and we have done this for 50 years, but still we have another 50 years of work to go.
I think there remains a misperception in college athletics about what Title IX actually is, as if it were simply one of many NCAA policies put in place to govern college athletics. The reality, of course, is that we are celebrating a federal law, and one that covers any educational-based program or activity that receives federal financial assistance.
I was competing in college when Title IX was passed and the implementation began. More than anything, it has been fair and overdue. Many of the old-timers thought it would be the end of athletics as we know it. Instead, it has been a new beginning.
Mike Lude, the athletics director at the University of Washington, was my first boss. He was a retired Marine, a former head football coach, yet the biggest influence he had on me was his unwavering support for our women's program and how hard he worked to enhance and grow women's athletics at Washington. Then I moved to football crazy Southwest Conference, but there I was introduced to Jody Conrad, a true pioneer in women's athletics. So remember, your leadership, your example in supporting women's athletics will have a real impact on the future.
Title IX has been a part of my life since its inception 50 years ago. I was raised by a mom that played 6-on-6 basketball, volleyball, and other sports as a girl and a young woman. I now have a daughter working to complete her degree in sports administration with a goal to work for a hockey program. Title IX was important in establishing societal change 50 years ago, and it's even more important now.
And so it's an honor and a pleasure to work in college athletics and to be able to create environments for our student athletes, especially our student athletes who are women, to have an opportunity to continually change the world for the better, provide them with a platform, get great education, but also to be able to show the world how talented they are from an athletic standpoint.
My mom was a coach. In 1972, she had just graduated from Winona State University in Winona, Minnesota, and along with my dad, followed him to Ohio, where he was a football coach at a high school. She started coaching too. She started coaching volleyball. Through my career, I've watched wonderful women accomplish great things in college athletics.
Women in sports has been something that has been extremely important in my life. Honestly, the women in my life have been the athletes. I've had an opportunity to watch women in sports for a long, long time, and it really, in a lot of ways, set the tone for what sports has become for me. I'm so thankful that my little girl right here is going to have an opportunity to play in college in whatever she chooses to do.
I'm next.
I'm so grateful for what it's done for my two young girls. One is which now a collegiate student athlete in the sport of soccer. So I just say thank you and commend all of those 50 years ago that stood strong in their beliefs of equality as it relates to gender, and ask all of us in these roles that we serve to continue never to forget, but to push forward.
So on this 50th anniversary, my heart is filled with immense gratitude for the legislators who saw this legislation adopted, to the trailblazers who served as wonderful role models and continued to fight the fight, and to the current champions, many of whom are in this room, who ensure that this legislation is fully implemented.
In my opinion, Title IX was one of the most important pieces of federal legislation ever passed in our country. I hope girls and women will make sports a part of their lives for many generations to come. I know that our country will be better for it.
And I'm just so incredibly grateful for Title IX and all of the people that have worked so hard to make progress. And I'm looking forward to continuing to be part of that progress moving forward.
And though we've made an awful lot of progress in the area of Title IX, we have much work to do.
My hope is that as we move into the future, Title IX will continue to provide all of our female athletes with incredible opportunities to pursue their goals and their dreams.
Let's just hope that the next 50 years
is going to be filled with more opportunities for women and how it shapes our society as well. Happy birthday, Title IX. Who knew 50 years ago when you made that wish for women's sports to grow that it would come true?
While progress has been made, there's no finish line when it comes to equality. Today I want to acknowledge the incredible women and leaders who have impacted my career and taught me the power of humility, resiliency, all while leading by example. I will continue to champion equality and access for all.
For those of us who have the privilege to work in college sports, equity and non-discrimination are among our most sacred values.
Women are still underrepresented in head coach positions, college athletic administration, and especially at the highest levels of Division I.
And we look forward to continuing to provide leadership, educational, and competitive opportunities for women in college sports.
There's been a lot of progression that have been made in the 50 years, but there's still so much progression to go.
The future is bright. We're only going up from here. We're seeing that with the growth of women's sports, but we're also seeing it with the growth of women in leadership.
We will continue to be committed to gender equity, both in the realm of collegiate competition and in life.
There are tens of thousands of men and women and families out there that have been tremendously impacted and profoundly enhanced by Title IX. Our society, quite simply, is better because of Title IX. So my perspective is preserve, protect, and enhance Title IX.
While we have work yet to do, there is much to celebrate. Happy anniversary, Title IX.